left or right when I'm last? Am I left? Okay.
To right.
Okay. Okay, so...
Stage left.
Can I start now?
No, yes.
So, I'm LeekFish, a.k.a. Christina.
No clapping.
Whichever. Hi?
Okay.
You're a slaver, right? I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah, grab like a chair right here because you're sharing a mic with like someone. Hello, friend.
Okay, so I'm LeekFish. If you're a horse fan, it's probably likely that you've seen my artwork at conventions and whatnot, because I did artwork, some artwork for EQLA, Everfree Northwest, Sac Running Expo, and a little bit for BABScon. And for some reason, I'm apparently horse famous and shipped with no hacking.
Okay, I'm going to take this. Introduce yourself, because we're currently doing introductions.
I'm Slifer. I draw ponies in Yu-Gi-Oh.
You might have to. You have to.
Okay, I'm Slifer, and I draw ponies in Yu-Gi-Oh, and I'm proud of it.
Woo! I'm not hearing anything.
So you two are sharing.
Yeah. But she shares her own mic. She's special. We're sharing.
It's because I'm more horse famous than you.
Exactly. I'm not horse famous, so I have to share one. Okay, I'm L9OBL, and people may or may not know who I am. I do the Fall Equestria, the hand-drawn comic, which is the oldest and most far forward and only continuing Fallout Equestria comic in the fandom. Woo! You have no idea what I'm talking about. I also do a lot of experimentation in art, so I do things like I painted this laptop. I do a lot of digital art, which she doesn't have.
Digital art that I don't have.
No, because you didn't put it on the...
Things that she doesn't have.
Yeah.
I mean...
And I also do engravings, which you can find this. Unfortunately, the glass got cracked because some asshat broke it. But this will be in the BABScon charity auction, and you can vote on it.
He's a poop hat.
I'm in the army, and so I have a dirty army mouth, and I'm not going to apologize for my language, for there are no small children here just yet.
There's a small horse right there. Oh, he took my hand sanitizer.
That wench. Okay, go.
What?
Your turn.
My name is SteveHolt. I like hamburgers and I draw things. I did this. I colored this.
She made the con book.
Con book. Oh yeah, I made.
I sketched it.
And
then Steve turned it magic.
Like the Wheel of Fire My Little Pony contest, I won the first thing with that Luna thing, and then I won the Gravity Falls shirt contest. I really like cats. Here, Bray.
Long story short, she's better than all of you.
She's rad.
Pretty much. But how many followers do you have? I'm Breaburned. I also go by... Thank you. I also go by Little Ivy 25 on DeviantArt. I draw horses.
Horses, yes.
Why do I get laughed at when I say that? I just vend at a bunch of conventions. I've gone to like BronyCon, Unicon, Fiesta Equestria, Midwest Brony Fast Pump 3Con, lots of others.
How did you kill late, chump?
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, but I'm here. That's what's important.
And he's here in all of us.
Yeah, and I have more followers than you.
And we did not forget you in the trunk.
Okay.
Bray.
Yeah.
And we did not forget you in the trunk.
Oh, that tissue shoe.
They sat in the
We
trunk
left Bray in the trunk.
They sat in the trunk of the Acura, and then we got in, and now we forgot to let them out. Okay, so I guess, should I just start the thing?
All right, yeah.
So who wants to learn how to draw horses? Okay, so here's how you draw a horse. You draw some circles, and then you draw the rest of stupid horse.
Thank you for quoting Giant Mosquito.
We're done. We're done.
All right, that is it for the panel. You
My
can all go
artwork
home.
proved that this is correct. I had him test my theory.
Close enough.
But in all seriousness, like the basics of, doing sketching and stuff is to keep in mind shapes, like circles. Like those circles that were actually there and used to do the final, quick, crappy sketch. I wasn't just, joking. Thank you. I literally did that in like 2 minutes because I was like, eh. And so here we have more sketches to illustrate taken from Lauren Faust's.
What is she done?
What?
Is she here? Is she a special guest? No. I don't think so.
Because, I mean, as you can see, she used a lot of basic shapes that you can see in the undersketch.
My God, oh, go back a second.
What?
Ew, like, oh my gosh, all the proportions are like off, like, oh my God.
But they haven't even watched the
The rest of the
show.
show is basically
I know.
discussions.
Yeah, I know.
I can't see what we're looking at. But yeah, take that on.
And then here's Steve's, because I added your drawing to.
Oh, that thing. Yeah.
You sent it to me.
You know, you could have asked me for art, right?
I thought
You want art from artists?
I'm
always online.
I'm sorry. But yeah, so here you can see like the before and after. What?
No, like I'm always online.
Before and after, she starts with basic sketch and a lot of simple shapes, and then it turns into like cute adorableness. And then, okay, I'm talking too much, so.
Okay, so here we see some really,
Gesture drawings.
some
Those are some really-
weird lines by some weird fish thing. And as you can see that she's trying, the first one in purple is what looks like a poor attempt at a hydra.
The important thing with these is that with these kind of drawings, you really want to keep the fluidity and have a single like motion going through them, so that way the figure ties together as a whole.
Yeah.
That was actual art.
Yeah, we're just talking about basic shapes, but
We have a section on action lines in a little bit.
yeah.
Show you
Actually, this is the section on action lines, Brett.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, I mean,
Fine.
What?
okay. You want to say something?
In animation, the idea is to make it as simple as possible so you don't kill your animator. So the idea is they have really basic shapes because obviously horses don't look like this. That'd be really concerning if actual horses look like that. So in most
horses don't look like that?
in most cartoons you can tell.
Horses all the time.
In most cartoons, including Pixar's work, you can tell their characters have basic shapes, such as circles, triangles, squares. This is all to make it really easy to draw by like 100 people, and
Are you calling
that's basically what you're saying.
Head fat?
I might be. He needs to lay off the starch.
And then the line of action that Slifer is also talking about is basically you want to make your characters as expressive as possible, usually through one fluid line. So, like, you also want to pay attention to body language and how, you know, shapes will be angled, or like if somebody is like, you know, slunched over. Is slunched a word? I don't think it is. Whatever.
Launched over, you launch him down into the ground.
But yeah, you get the idea. And do you want to take this section because it's poses and you drew some of those?
But you drew half of the fight.
I've been talking like.
Wasn't it? Okay, it was Chaco that wanted poses, right?
Yeah, good. Because I gave him a bunch of poses. I guess you did too.
So Chaco needed poses for, I think, the badge art, right?
Yeah.
And so he asked us to just kind of do some really quick sketches. So in my mind, I'm just kind of thinking like a Pegasus pony. Usually they're not grounded too much like a Earth pony would be. So I was kind of thinking like maybe a light trot or flying, you know? So the biggest thing is I always start off by drawing the head and then like the torso body placement, and then I start flailing the legs around. So, you know, trying to think like Superman, you know, like. So you don't start by sketching out the outline. Just do your basic shapes form to get your basic form down first before you start doing details. I've seen that too much.
Yeah.
Also, despite what Chaco says, the badge art fail was his fault and not mine because he added stuff to my bottom right sketch. The hoop is not backwards in the sketch because that is a shot from behind. I have no idea what the, okay, so apparently on the badges,
I'm looking at
that front hoof is supposedly backwards because of the way it's wrapped around that painting, but that is not the case because that painting was never there in her hoof. It's on the vendor badges, guys.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
No, she can have it like in her armpit.
Yeah, like in any case, it's fine. But people keep saying that it's like that her hoof is backwards, and he keeps trying to blame me, and it's not my fault because he messed with my sketch too much.
We have proof there of that the almighty LeekFish is never wrong.
Can I talk about poses?
Hey,
Yes. Let us let Breaburned, the infamous Breaburned.
Okay, well, speaking of Bray.
Talk about poses.
I want to talk about poses because, like, as an artist, I have this fear that I'm gonna draw the same pose twice, and that's something I never want to do. I never want to accidentally draw something that looks exactly like something I drew in the past. So, like, whenever I try and like when I doodle, when I try and come up with new unique sketches for like sketch commissioners, I always try and think of like something I've never drawn before. And that can be really hard. So like when I doodle, I force really crazy perspectives, or I think like, what if this horse is, I'm in a glass box and this horse is standing on front of it. What do they look like from below or from a bird's eye view? Or like if you were like at hoof level looking up, like these crazy angles and proportions, and still trying to make it work. And I try those crazy perspectives all the time to like help me like improve my poses. Another thing I do as far as poses to like switch it up is like I pick one pose and then try and draw like every camera angle I can, like to view the figure in 3D space better.
I mean, this is sort of kind of attaching onto that. It's probably one of my favorite things about ponies, and you've probably noticed that, is depending on the pose, depending on the angle, the proportions all change, and it's some of the coolest freaking stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I draw a lot of comics, so I get lazy, and I do draw a lot of the similar poses, especially because it's followed Equestria. There's a lot of swearing and running and shooting. I'm currently in the scene where she's doing going through iron-shod firearms. That is a lot of running, so it's a lot of the same pose, a lot of her whipping around corners, a lot of this, a lot of that. And I mean, I know you hate drawing the same pose. I love it when I can draw the same pose, because it just makes my job easier. I have to put out two comic pages a day. Or, I mean, 2 comic pages a week, because I work full-time. It'd be 2 a
day, like what?
I can do a day.
Okay.
In the weekend, I will put 4 out in a weekend if I have the time.
Yeah. But like sometimes I'll see artists who like tend to sketch as if they're looking at eye level at the horse at all time, and I'm just telling people like, don't be afraid to draw like you're looking down, or like from the floor level up, or just just move the view of how you're looking at the horse.
The thing is too, you want to always keep trying to do something new to prevent your work from getting stagnant, because you can draw the same sitting pony, and you can do that over and over and over again, and yeah, you'll get commissions for the same sitting pony, but different OC with a wing or whatever. But your art will sure enough get stagnant because you're not pushing yourself and you're not trying out new things. If you stick with that, you're really not going to get much anywhere. Like, you'll be really, really good at drawing one pony sitting down, but that's about all you can do at that point.
Yeah.
Can I add to that?
Yeah,
Real
go.
quick?
And then I'll add to it later.
That's actually part of why I really love when people give me like specifics when drawing commissions.
yeah.
Even if
Yes.
it's just like basic stuff like details about the character or like their personality, what they like to do. Because then it gives me something to go off of and I can create something that's a lot better than just them standing and giving a pose like this.
Oh, I know. It is doing commissions. I used to be a freelance graphic designer before I joined the military. Doing any freelance art, doing commissions, doing anything, the worst thing is draw me something. Well, okay, what do you want drawn? I want something drawn. You need to be specific. What exactly do you want? You are paying me money to draw you something. If I draw it and you don't like it, what?
Why am I licking a banana?
I can do that. That is something to go on.
This is a
Actually, I think that's one more for Breaburned.
Thank you.
He really loves
And I mean, if anyone spends any sort of time, and they've probably heard me say this more than enough, the fact that they just want me to shut up about it. Because, I mean, I'm an absolute nobody in this fandom now, which I'm really enjoying. I used to be really famous, and yeah, these guys are sitting there going, will you shut up about this? I used to have like 300,000 followers on my old accounts under different names, and it was fun, and I kind of missed the fame, but you do get stagnant because people want the same old thing. It gets annoying. I mean, look at the stuff, no one knows who I am, and look at the stuff I'm doing. I'm doing some really crazy-ass engravings. I'm painting some really cool things. That's not mine. Well, it's not my art. It's mine, I bought it, but that's not my art. You know, I'm doing digital art. Unfortunately, someone didn't include my digital art into the presentation, so I can't show it to you.
I was in a hurry to make this the night before I had to fly here.
Back to the presentation though.
But yeah, you know, and I mean, in all honesty, that's like the coolest stuff. I'm trying out so many cool, new, different things all the time, and it's the same thing with my comic. There are always new
Amity, where are you going? Where are you going, buddy?
to experiment. And in all honesty, I think, I mean, I hate to speak for everyone, but I mean, most or all of the artists I've ever spoken to, you guys pretty much can agree with me on this. Experimenting and expanding yourself as an artist is some of the most fun things and the coolest stuff in the world.
Very important.
Oh, and it's important. But it is, like, it's my favorite
Never say
thing.
that. Never say you suck. Just say you're not at that level yet.
You know what?
Please don't ever say this sucks. I look at my art, I think it sucks. Okay, there's always something I can do to make it better. Make it cooler, make it look better. You know,
20% cooler?
Yeah. 100%. Because there's no shame in looking up like your favorite artists and seeing what they're doing right and seeing if you can kind of like emulate that or take away like what they're doing right. And there's no shame in like watching the show and being like, I really like that pose. Let me kind of like copy it and learn why it looks like that. Just don't outright trace it, but use it to learn and like grow yourself. If you just sit there going like, I can't draw this, be like, then you can't draw this. You're never gonna draw it. Just try. There's no harm in failing.
We should have included our oldest pieces.
Yes.
Because we all sucked.
Oh, you want to see my Sonic Ghost? Let me show you my Sonic Ghost.
Yes. Yes. But like, that's the thing too. That's the thing too. Is especially for those who are really I'll let you ask your question, but like that's the thing is, I mean, you sit there and the people who draw a lot, the people who actually actively seek to improve themselves and improve, like there are times where I'll be drawing a drawing and I will get better throughout the drawing and I will hate that drawing because when I started drawing it, the skill at which I drew it does not match the skill of which I can do. And it's the same thing, like a week later I'll look at a piece of art and go, I can't stand this. I look at this is one of my favorite pieces I've ever done. The Luna is completely disproportionate on the body. The body is too long. It bugs the hell out of me. The neck is fine. The neck is fine, but her body is too long, and it annoys me.
Got a question right here.
Yeah.
What up?
Actually, I just wanted to also add to what you were saying earlier about drawing the different perspectives and all, because it also it also kind of helps you kind of get a better understanding of the figure that you're drawing. So that it's like, you know, when you're trying to go for something more crazy, it's like, oh look, now I have a better idea how to tackle this perspective and this pose. You know?
It goes back to like how everything is made up of individual shapes and everything. Because like when I try and draw crazy perspectives, sometimes what I do is I draw a box and fit the horse inside of it. And so like since I know the body is basically like a curvy bean and like the legs are weird cylinders and like because I've studied like how they work and like experimented with the construction of their anatomy and stuff, I've like I can visualize them better in a 3D space and fit them to their environment and their space better, especially
You know what's
camera angle.
really funny when I'm hearing all of you guys talk about how you do your drawing? I literally just draw a couple circles and draw the rest of the damn horse. That is literally how I do my drawing. And if you I hope we start talking about finding like your own style of art soon, because that is
Let's go back to the slideshow.
yeah, let's go back to the slideshow.
Well, next slide was mostly expression sheets.
Oh,
Some of which are really, really old from back when I was designing Sac Brony Expo mascots. And then that one on the bottom right was when I realized I left for con the next day.
Expressions are tough.
Yep.
They really are.
Well, also what you have to keep in mind with expressions is you don't want to pull a Disney and make every character's expression look the same.
Their entire form.
Don't be
Yeah.
afraid to make
And
stupid
face.
faces in the mirror if you can't think of the expression.
Yeah, actually, that is, I mean, you can tell sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. You can tell an artist by the fact that he has, myself included, 1,000,001 of the weirdest selfies ever. Especially if they like to draw figures. And because like I will sit there and I'll take pictures of myself. I'll take pictures of myself of my faces because they're references. When I'm trying to draw something, I'm trying to do someone doing a Superman pose and I can't get it right, I will pull out my camera and I will Superman pose and I will have it. So my phone is filled with tons of selfies.
But it's not even that though, because another thing to keep in mind is some characters just express certain feelings differently.
Oh yeah. Facial expressions. I have selfies of other people for that.
That's awkward. Okay.
Yeah, no, but I mean like
It's not a selfie of another. It's just a picture of another person. Anyway.
well, whatever.
Slideshow.
Okay.
But like even if you Google search, like just go on Google and search up character expression sheets.
Bad. Wait, let's go.
What?
Okay, so next section is line art.
Oh,
So here I have a couple of examples, one by myself and one by Spitfire Art, because her line art is kind of gorgeous. And both are decent examples of using line weight to provide like a sense of depth or emphasis.
If you guys want really good examples, look just to Action Comics or even the My
Yes.
Little Pony comic. You can ask Andy Price, look at his line work.
It is
Because
amazing.
you notice the weight, it really makes the characters pop and really, it's like really comic books and manga I think are the best kind of ways to learn
Oh, yeah.
the meaning of line art, yeah.
Again, this is one of those parts where I feel like a complete hypocrite because I don't even bother with the line art. I just have the pressure sensitivity set up on my tablet and then I draw and I don't even bother about doing line art and then my line art ends up being weighted the way I apparently want it.
I've studied Andy Price.
He's amazing.
Yeah, he's
And
got
speaking of comics,
oh yeah.
hey Bray, we did a thing back in Nightmare Nights.
Yeah. I've studied Andy Price and his work, and like, it's actually affected how I do my line work a little bit. Like, one thing about studying other artists, you pick up on things that they do, and then they like slowly work their way into your work as well.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed Andy Price always does is he has like a little black triangle under the chin, like to create like that shadow, and you can see on the Luna, I did it. Like
Yeah,
that
I
little-
did something kind of similar with cross-hatching actually, now that I
Yeah.
think about it. I wasn't even thinking about that, but...
Yeah. So
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Like that is another thing too. I mean, there are two
You pick up these little things about line and width that work and don't
Yeah.
work, like limbs that are closer to the camera. I didn't really do it in this picture, but limbs that are closer to the camera, you make thicker. Things that are further away, you make lighter. Another big thing about line art is like
Or
when
things
you
that are
have-
heavier or like hold more weight. Like with Nightmare Rarity, I made a lot of her hairlines a lot thicker, except the ones like in her hair to just show where the white stripes are a little bit thinner, or at least they were supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think. Oh, that's. a
Speaking
good
of Andy
example.
Price, there
Yeah,
you go.
speaking of
Yeah,
Andy
that
Price.
one.
Yeah, he's a fantastic model to study.
Oh, yeah.
I always recommend artists study other artists as long as they don't like trace and call it their own. I highly recommend tracing other artists.
And not even like directly copying, like just looking at what they do and what you like about what they do, because like sometimes, I know I'll look at an artist and be like, I like how they do this, not so much a fan of how they do something else, but I'll try to incorporate some of their techniques into my own work, or just to try out a certain style with one of my pieces, just to see how it would look in my own, like, with my own flair.
Like I know. Oh, sorry, go.
Another good example of someone who works really well with line weight is Curio Spear. I don't know if you guys follow her on Tumblr.
Yes.
She does really simplistic work, and I'm sad that we don't have an example of her art up there. But her work is really super simplistic, but her line weight, she manages to focus on what's important, you know, like she makes the head stand out when that's the main focus of it. And that's another thing to do with line width, is that if the center's the focus, then make your width, you know, stand out as much, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Like make fine details small. Make
Did you want me to put it back a slide?
No, I want to talk about this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Go.
Yeah, because
yeah.
I figured these were good examples of colored versus Not colored? Well, actually, Steve uses a mix of both colored and not colored in her piece.
Yeah.
But also, you tended to like kind of, it blends in with the shading a little bit.
Yeah.
And also the way it incorporates the speed lines.
It's not black, it's a dark blue
Yeah.
to kind of match with the rest of the character.
Right.
And I was saying something more about like line width.
Yeah.
Like, when I felt there was a lot of weight on the character, I made the line a lot thicker. And like towards the end of things, I made the line thicker. Another thing, like this is all just to make the figure like more interesting. If all the lines were the same thickness, it would be boring. It would just look like.
Except in some examples.
Yeah.
There are some instances where it could, you know,
yeah,
work.
it does work.
Like, I mean, Steve uses pretty consistent line thickness quite a bit, but it works with her style very well.
Yeah, it depends with the style, for sure. One thing I do to make lines kind of more interesting is like when two lines meet almost directly at each other, I kind of like make them ease into each other, like which you can kind of see like right here. Instead of making it just a line being a line, I like kind of add it in, like it eases, they ease into each other. It makes the lines kind of like look less sharp and.
It also adds some really good shading.
Yeah, and it adds shade to it too. Like the shading on this is super simple. It's like one layer, but the lines help a lot.
That's right. I cheat and do like simple half opacity cell shading and then smudge it. I cheat. It's nice.
I want to do a warning about thick outlines like you see in the Sylveon picture. In animation, they do a thick outline like characters like Powerpuff Girls, anything by Butch Hartman. Even My Little Pony has that thick outline because when a character moves, they need to distinguish it from the background. If you do that to your artwork, it will flatten it. So don't do like a thick outline unless you're doing something very cartoony. Because if you do that to a realistic drawing, it's just going to look flat. So, yeah.
And I'll probably say this until you guys tell me to like shut up and quit being a broken record.
Shut up and quit being a broken record.
Ouch. But no. But I mean, again, like it all depends on what you're going for, what your art style is. And then, like when new artists ask me for critiques for whatever, you know, how do I do this? How do I become a better artist? My main thing is find your art style. Find the one that works for you. It doesn't matter how backwards it is. Like
I'm actually going to disagree on that because I think that you don't want to just stick to one style all the time. You should try as many things as you can.
Definitely experiment, but I'm not talking about, you know, like you, me, people who are comfortable with their current art style, try and expand. I'm saying experiment, find what works for you, find that art style. You'll have certain things, like SteveHolt has this, I have I don't vary in line thickness a lot, and it works well for my art. You know, the way I do my hair works really well for the way I draw, and it all just fits. And I mean, I experiment. Like I'm currently researching. I don't know if any of you know who Yakovlev Vlad is.
Whoops, sorry, ignore
Yeah.
Hugo.
Yeah, I don't know if any of you know who Yakovlev Vlad is or Pony X Killer. Either of those two. Those people have the most amazing shading I have ever seen, and I am trying to emulate it.
We're gonna talk about shading now.
No, we don't have to. I'm just trying to emphasize, like just find what works for you and then expand upon it.
Can we go to the next slide now?
Yeah, next slide.
Or wait.
I've been drawing for years of physical media, and I recently last year transitioned to Zoho YouTube, but I'm still getting used to it. You know, it's an entirely different key, and it feels like that. Anything tips in digital programs?
Practice.
Again, sorry, go.
Okay, for tablets, unless you have the Cintiq, it is going to take a couple months, if not years, to get used to that disconnect, because I'm still not used to it. I've been using it since like mid-college.
Even with the Cintiq, it's like a slate, you know, you have to adjust it.
Yeah, I still prefer to do my line art by hand just because I'm faster and I can do the line weights. I know I can get it correct. But I use my tablet to color digitally.
Yeah.
And because the Control Z is a godsend.
Oh yeah, like what I draw on printer paper, scan it, and then trace it on the computer, and then color it in.
So if you're afraid of your line weights being uneven, you can also do vector art, which
Yes.
is you use the pen tool to just make your outline, and then you can kind of go from there. If you're really rushed to do something, otherwise
Yeah.
just keep experimenting, keep practicing. You won't get there
And
unless you practice.
if a little, again, another tip I like to give people who are like, I want to improve my art, start up a comic. I don't care if you're a comic artist or not. I'm not a comic artist by trade.
How are we doing for time?
It's 9:52. When does this panel end?
9:15 or 10:15. 10:15. But draw a comic because it will like, especially if you open up a comic series, whether you write it or not, it will force you.
Practice, lots of practice. Sorry,
Yes.
Okay, so here's examples of how linelessness or lineless work is pretty effective, using either like minimal shading or just the way that you cast shadows in order to create the illusion of a line. Does anybody want to say anything else about that?
I can't do it without showing an example of how this works.
Yeah.
Okay, so color theory, Twilight is purple, background is yellow. Those are, what is it called? Complementary colors. Stands out against each other. Here's another thing, your saturation, so like, okay, I'm sorry whoever drew this on the cover. You see this rainbow dash? From far away, can you see Rainbow Dash's outline? No, you can't, because she is the exact same saturation as the background. If she was a little darker or more saturated, she would stand out. This is what you want to avoid. Sometimes you can do like a blue sky and a green grass. They look fine, but if you turn down your saturation, it'll be all gray, the same gray. You want to avoid that. Your foreground must stand out from your background, otherwise you don't even know what you're looking at. Good examples is maybe League of Legends art. If you turn on the saturation on there, you will see that character pops out of the page because their character is drawn darker and more saturated than the background.
One thing to note is with color, a lot of times what you see on the screen doesn't exactly match out what's going to be printed. So one thing to keep in mind is a blue on the screen will not exactly print out, especially if they're printing out the morning of. So.
Yeah, actually, going on.
Yeah, way to go, BABScon.
Going on that, especially since, like again, this was really big for me being a graphic designer. You really need to vary before you're sending something finished and you know it's going to be printed. Put it on like 5 different screens. It will give you some variation. Then, if you have a like an actual legitimate version of Photoshop. Photoshop. Put it into CMYK.
Guys,
because
in Steve's defense, she was literally like hassled in like doing this comic book until literally last minute. It should have been finished like a week early, and
Yeah, no, I'm
like
sorry. I just,
she didn't have time. Like,
While we're on it.
sorry.
Yeah.
just saying. But we really need to like keep moving because we got like hella to cover.
One thing I do. Okay.
But anyway,
Just say one thing.
well,
What's the one thing?
No, it's good. Go.
Never mind.
Let the panel master speak.
so here's a couple examples of Steve's work. She has used really good examples of how to create like the illusion of line using shading. Without like a solid, black outline, or just creating like highlights and shadows to, emphasize where certain lines would be.
And not a bad printer.
Okay, I wasn't sure if Steve wanted to say anything.
No, the
but-
printer makes so much difference. I'm going to say that right now. We got 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But no, printers make a difference.
Wait, are we done at 10 or 10:15?
10:15.
Keep going.
Okay, so here's also a couple of examples of how you can incorporate like different colored lines. You don't have to go with straight black, or you don't have to go with like, a darker version of the color that, it is on.
The show doesn't do black. The show doesn't do black. All their prints are like pastel on like a darker pastel.
I'm going to say this, avoid in all your art, avoid using in color straight black and straight white.
Places to use it.
There are certain places
Like,
to
do not
use
shade
it.
with gray, and we actually have a section coming up on not shading with gray.
Let's get to it.
Yeah.
Speaking of that section, so here's a couple examples, one of Breaburned's and one Slifer's. Top one, Bray uses like, a lot of color in his shading, and that makes it look very much like, a lot more pleasing to look at. And also Slifer's has a really good example of how you want to do, like, balance your colors very well. She has, all these like bright, vivid characters, but she complements it with a neutral background to make the characters pop. Oops. Whoa.
When it comes to shadows, for me, the color you choose for the shadows changes the mood of the piece dramatically. For some pieces, like for most of my pieces, I wanted to create a bright, happy vibe or whatever. So I make it like a purple or an orange. In this piece, you can see the purple on Derby. I think Big Mac has purple too, but since he's red, you can't really see it as much. Anyway, it gives it a lot more pop than a black shadow would give it. If you use like a kind of greenish shadow or a blue shadow, it becomes a lot more melancholy or like even like scientific sometimes. It creates a whole different feel to the piece.
I think I actually have a slide coming up on using color to set a mood.
Let's go to it.
Okay. Well, here's an example of. Yeah. Well, I wanted to include a couple examples of how using black to shade, like for a stylistic choice, can be potentially effective, or like it can be a time and place where it. In this case, like you don't want to really shade with black, like soft shading, if you're trying to like blend, because it doesn't usually look very good. But also. Here's also an example of Cypher's work where she uses a fairly simple color palette, like fairly monochromatic, but it still works.
The other thing too is you have to understand exactly how natural light works. Natural light doesn't cast a pure black shadow. Granted, it looks like that, but the fact of the matter is it's not pure black. A lot of lights, your shadow will be orange, even on skin tones. You're never like purely black. You know, it's always either really, really dark orange or something to that effect. Part of really getting this work, you know, to really stand out is to just get a good understanding of light, and to then you just mess around with something. Still life actually really does help, you know, in understanding that. Drawing a simple ball, it changes so much depending on the light. I really recommend you just get a ball and just shade it, you know, to your heart's content, because...
Egg shading. They do
There you
it in
go.
a lot of art classes. You have to shade an egg. It helps you learn.
It is absolutely fantastic for training.
Okay. So a couple of examples of fairly limited color palettes, in which case a couple of, you know, contrasting colors here and there in the case of Slifer and her somber artwork, and then Space Kid uses a really nice contrast between the dark sky, the white moon, and then like Luna's figure.
That's more contrast.
And then I also wanted to keep a couple examples of traditional art in here as well, because I realized as I was like finishing the PowerPoint that there was like no traditional art in here, and that was a huge problem. But Citra and Sophie Cabra, a couple pieces they did where their palettes are fairly limited, but it's still very effective in conveying shading.
One thing I want to point out, if you want to go back, I don't know.
What?
Go back one.
As far as like colors go, like a lot of people have this reflex to make the sky blue and the grass green. And I'll point this out in the Sophie Cabra piece, but like the sky's yellow, and like the trees and everything is like this brown and greenish yellow. Everything.
It has
all
kind
the
of like a
colors
haze
work
to it.
together.
Watch your sunset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The sky
and-
is no longer blue.
Yeah.
And like,
Well, I noticed now that you're talking about Sophie's piece, I'm noticing that she kind of creates a hazy look to it, which works considering like Daring Do is like, you know, obviously the jungle.
It's the background.
Yeah, what she ends up doing is she like the things in the back are actually a little bit more saturated to give the thing to give it depth. If you actually take a look at it, it's a lot more simpler colors and they're a lot more washed out. And then she has the yellow background, which makes it look even more, makes that temple look even more washed out. It gives a lot of depth, and it's just a really. I actually like that piece a lot.
They go by different name on Tumblr.
And then here's another couple pieces by Stephen Bray. I picked these ones, I think, because they use shading and color to convey space. So you have like, you know, all this like purple night shading on Bray's piece, and then Luna has a whole lot of blues in Steve's piece, but then you see like the background colors around her are all like these pastel sort of colors, and it sort of is able to, you know, you're able to really grasp like Luna's figure, you know, in relationship to her surroundings.
yeah. In this piece in particular, like I'll go back to how like the blues and purple kind of create like a
hazy look.
yeah, like kind of creepier look, but like also, yeah, it's a good point how the light is used to create space. How like the open door shines really bright and harshly on Fluttershy, but then it just shows on the outline of Luna. It can be really, really hard to think of light casting on objects in a 3D space, but that's where studying still lifes comes in like really important. How you study like when you put a light behind a ball, like how it shines and glows on the outside of it, and something I'm just starting to learn about like is how if you make shadows darker at the edge of where they hit, you know, and using reflective light. Like I use a little bit of reflective light in the Pink One Had Many piece, but like using secondary light sources and how light reflects off other things and using the reflective light to combine colors together. It's a lot to study. But
Long story,
it all
physics.
works. Yeah. It's a lot to study, but it works so many wonders in tying your pieces together. Oh, purple Kecleon.
kind of stuff he's talking about.
Yeah, here's a couple pieces I picked out because I really wanted to showcase like how you can distinguish like the character from the background by using, for instance, contrasting colors. Like purple Kecleon used a, like, you know, obviously pink's for Pinky, but then her background, even though, you know, like we were saying, water doesn't have to be blue, like she uses a lot of greens because pink is a form of red, which, you know, its contrasting color is green.
Complementary,
Or complementary and contrasting colors are the same thing.
I guess.
Yeah, you'll notice a lot of Pinkie Pie pieces are on like backgrounds of blue or green or something like that, and that's because of how they contrast.
So here's the couple pieces I have for using color to set a mood. In my piece Divided, which is on the right, I tinted everything like kind of an icy blue to, you know, because, you know, you guys remember the Heart Swarming Eve episode where everything's like all cold and icy and unpleasant and, you know. And then one of Purple Kecleon's pieces on the left, where the rest of the main six like have the wrong cutie marks and they're all sad and there's like a lot of, you know, dark shading and a lot of like, it seems like a lot of blue and purple hues, if I'm seeing it right.
A few patches of yellow because where the sun's coming through
Right.
checkered.
Yeah. And
So old.
I'm sorry, I was just like picking random stuff in your gallery, I'm sorry. Here's like pretty straightforward shading, which is basically like, you know, if you're just trying to convey a scene like exactly as it is, you don't want to be like, if you don't want to be like super experimental, but you know, if I'm making any sense with that, I'm running on 4.5 hours of
Like the
sleep, I'm
shading of
sorry.
our piece is pretty basic.
Yeah.
It's just like a simple light from above. Oh, Sunny Bee.
Yeah.
No,
Pretty much the same thing here, straightforward.
yeah, I could rave about Sunny Bee's work for a long time. Oh, there's more clockwork.
Right?
If you want to go back another slide, Sunny Bee is a master of reflective light, and all of his pieces look so squishy and reflective and like, I don't know, you'll notice how like on every character there's like reflective light of whatever's next to them, like everywhere, and it just makes everything look so full and 3D and dynamic, and I love how he does that. I'm just ranting about him. Go on.
Okay. So here's some example of like, you know, more harder cell shading and how it has like, you know, time and a place, sorry. Yeah, harder shading, like the piece on the left by Grim Sugar has, it's hard to see with the lights and stuff on, but her mane and tail have, you know, two different shades of blue kind of swirled together, and it still creates like that, you know, feel of hair, even though it's not a whole lot of detail, like when you really think about it. And then there's the piece on the right by Clockwork Quartet of Scootaloo that uses like, you know, just a very simple shadow to distinguish like, you know,
Cell shading.
yeah, cell shading in space, kind of.
Yeah. Like I said, I like to cheat and I just like to do cell shading and then smooth it out.
And here's some more lineless.
Solid color, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of solid colors, a lot of lineless stuff in these two examples.
Limited color palettes.
How you can like, you know, use those colors to distinguish shapes very easily.
I've never seen that piece. I've never seen that piece before on the left before, but I love how, yeah.
It was on the shirt.
It was on a contest, yeah.
Oh.
Lauren Fox
Well,
picked it.
anyway, I love how the things that are closer are much darker and much more saturated than the clouds that are like a really pale in the background. That helps immensely to create a 3D space in your environment.
Yeah.
Look at any landscape, you'll notice stuff in the background like mountains tends to fade out.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
It's so far
like
away.
even if you look at a regular photograph of like San Francisco from the mountain, you'll know that from the far end of San Francisco is really gray, it's really grungy because the atmosphere actually saturates things as they get farther away. So the things up close are gonna be really vibrant and green and saturated.
Yeah, like this. You can see it like in the Assassin Monkey's work. Everything past those mushrooms is really kind of grayed out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, here's like a couple examples of basically the same thing, but with like more detailed painting styles, so you can see how it's like, you know, pretty effective. And you can also see how Citra in his piece Flutterby, in the background, a lot of the stuff is like blurred out just to put the focus thus on Fluttershy and the flower that she's like hovering over. And then we have some more abstract stuff.
Now, these are some very good examples of just like action lines.
Yeah. Because like the Rainbow Dash is making like this kind of thing. Your eye wants to follow her head all the way through her tail.
That's actually one thing is if you want to learn more about like action lines, again, comics or animation, especially anime, the way that like you sit down and you break it down.
Wander Over Yonder.
Yes.
Has
Yes.
fantastic, like in every screenshot of Wander Over Yonder, you can find a single line that follows the entire character that describes their entire action.
And
I love
their
that show.
designs were like intentional for that too.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Wanda and Sylvia are meant to be sort of like yin and yang like shapes together.
Okay.
Okay, let's keep going.
Oh, it's the same thing with both of these works. They're very yin-y yangy.
A little bit, yeah.
But they all flow. It's really awesome.
Yeah, this was a piece I wanted to finish on because like, I know, as we were talking about earlier, a lot of people get discouraged if there's like artists out there that they think are better, and it's like there will always be somebody better, more experienced than you, always.
How long
But
have we been in this game? Like 15 years at least for me?
yeah, I think I've been drawing for like, I don't know, 8 years.
I've been drawing for like 12.
It takes time. Don't just say like 2 months. Like I can't draw. I'm like, well.
When was Sonic created?
Let me put it this way.
Sonic was born, so was my art.
I've never considered myself artistically talented when it comes to drawing. I'm very good when it comes to doing graphic design, things like advertisements, book covers, whatever. I'm really good at that stuff. I consider myself extremely talented. When it comes to drawing, so drawing something like this, drawing, I'm just going to use like Slifer's work, like actually drawing something, I'm very, very untalented. I've spent years trying to actually learn to draw, taking classes, and for me it was actually just a very big struggle because there are some people who can just pick up a picture and draw amazing drawings, or pick up a pencil and draw amazing drawings. I'm not one of those people.
So I think like.
So practice.
We kind of wanted to talk about what it takes to be a vendor. And like the process it takes to be a vendor, like because most art panels talk about like art theory and stuff.
Yeah.
We kind of want to talk about like the process of becoming a vendor.
Freelancing.
Just try. Just do it.
Jump into it.
Do it.
Jump into it, but do your research.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Well, because you don't want to, go into something without at least researching, what others do for display and
Let Breaburned.
Sorry.
Okay, so what do you want to start with? Like, yeah, it's a really complicated process, but
Well, okay,
Yeah,
the first
go.
thing is that you need to gauge interest in your artwork, okay? 2 favorites, it's nice and everything, but you need to really gauge, how well your art will do. And although self-promoting can be a bit of, it's a bit annoying to other people, yes, and I know it could be like, oh, I don't want to be the kind of person to self-promote, but it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to like go, and just submit your own stuff, even to like, someplace like EQD, be like, can you put me in the draw for just to get noticed somewhere, and then use that critique to start building what does, and really go out there and explore and research vendor areas, what's selling, what's doing well, what's unique, because you have people like the Paper Pony who are selling these beautiful like paperworks, in these frames, and no one else at this convention has that, okay? There's find a niche that works like that, or you can do what everyone else does, like buttons. Very nice sell buttons, and even though everyone does buttons, we do well selling buttons, because
I love
there's always a
buttons.
guaranteed audience for them.
I'm not sure if you noticed, but I really like buttons. So I mean,
yeah.
but
I just lost my train of thought.
Go.
I was gonna say that like as far as self-promoting goes, I'm gonna admit I got a lot of my initial popularity by drawing a fan art for popular Bernie musicians. That's how I got like into it. They would reblog my work and like I'll admit that's
And there's
how I
nothing
got
wrong
my
with
initial
that.
boost, but that's part of getting yourself out there. Like don't be too annoying with it. But
Well, I mean, it's like how I. Sorry.
Okay.
Don't throw yourself out and be like, here's my art.
Yeah. Okay. Again,
It's kind of like how I did a lot of convention work, and that was how I started getting noticed by the community.
yeah. Like now we're getting into something like completely different, which is like self-promoting, which I was really hoping to talk mostly about that. in this panel instead of just art styles. No offense, LeekFish. But yeah, I know it's art 101, but promoting is an art within itself. It really, really is. I used to be a freelance graphic designer. It's all word of mouth. It's you know people, you impress people, you get work. You then, if you have some fandom, you have to.
Well, of course, it's all about connections.
Oh yeah, it's all about connections, and it's all about keeping those connections happy, because that's what gets you paid without pissing them off.
Can I give an example?
Yeah,
real quick?
go.
So I initially started doing convention work through Sac Brownie Expo. Through them, I met the guys from EQLA. That was how I landed, I ended up getting into contact with the EQLA peeps. And then while at EQLA, having done artwork for them, I was approached by Everfree Northwest. And then shortly after that, BABScon. So it was kind of like, it kept going one thing to another, and that's basically why I'm still doing convention work constantly. I keep getting dragged into things.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
another thing too,
business cards. Go.
especially, okay, well, now talking more about the business side of vending. Think of it like Animal Crossing. You start off small, okay? You have to start off with a shabby little house and a little cassette player. That's how you vend. A lot of people instantly go in the red because they spend all their money on 25 unique prints and maybe sold about 50 or so, and they didn't break even. And the truth is, the first time you vend, you may be lucky enough to break even because you're testing the waters, and that's okay. If you're a first-time vendor and you go, well, I only made $50, you made $50. You made 50 more than I did when I first started out, okay? So start off small, gauge what you want to do, I mean, when I began, I only had maybe 12 pins in my inventory, and now I'm at a board with 250, over 250 designs. So you start small, you build up an inventory, you gauge what sells the best. My Luna print doesn't do well, but my Fluttershy one does. So then you crank out more of that print, and you have your Luna one on hand, but that's not the one you're gonna, make a huge print out of. The first time you get out there, you may not do super great, but you gain experience, and that's what matters. And soon you can afford to, get the next house, and then you go on and up and up and up, and you punch Nook in the face, and you.
And another thing too is, and this is one thing that a lot of artists I know hate, is you got to be good at accounting. You really have to crunch numbers. When I freelanced, I had 6 different bank accounts just to organize my expenses. When I went to cons, you will very rarely see me work artist salaries nowadays because I can't stand it. It's too much work. I have to make $3,000 minimum just to break even. $3,000 in 3 days is a ridiculous amount of money. It is a ridiculous amount of merch to push.
It really depends on the artist, though, because sometimes material costs are higher for some than others.
Yes.
Sorry, can I make a note? I've been tabling
This is
since
expensive.
2008, not all at Brony conventions, obviously, but I started off as Fanime, which is, back then was about 12,000 people. I barely broke even. I had about 4 prints. I knew what sold, what didn't. My biggest seller was honestly just unique commissions, on-site commissions. And ever since then, I just tried tabling SAG Anime and more Fanimes, and eventually I tried out Anime Expo. I almost broke even my first year, but I knew what was wrong because there's a difference between a con of 1,500 and 150,000, okay? So when you're doing a con that's only maybe 1,500 people, you can probably get away with selling I think all of us probably have at least one Fluttershy print or something, right? So 6 people at a con of 1,500 with the same a Fluttershy print, people are probably gonna buy from everyone. If you're at a con with 150,000 people and everyone has Fluttershy, you got a problem. So it really depends on the size of the con, what you're offering, and just go from there. So
One thing I want to mention is there's something very important in drawing what's popular, but there's something more important in drawing what's interesting to you.
What's unique?
Yeah, no.
What draws people to your style?
No,
We gotta wrap up.
I know.
Sorry.
It's important when you're trying to be profitable to draw what people are going to buy, but it's also I think more important to make sure you keep drawing what interests you. It's possible. You don't want to sell out. You don't want to feel forced to draw every new character. You don't want to feel like you're forced to have a stand full of Flutterbat or whatever. You want to keep interesting stuff. You don't want to have this character's popular, so I have to draw them sitting plainly.
Well,
off
it's
to the
if you
side
are
in
invested
a
in your
button
work, it will
in order
show.
to sell. You gotta keep your creativity.
Okay.
Yeah, keep your creativity, but You gotta find the balance between drawing what's popular and drawing what you want to draw, and never forget to
Find your balance.
Keep doing what you want.
That's the thing. And I mean that's one of, again, people hear me talk about how I hated being really super internet famous because it's restricting. You have all of these people sitting here saying they want this kind of work.
It's only restricting if you make it so.
Yeah, I guess, but it's more that, I have 300,000 people biting at me to draw the same Flutterbat over and over again.
Screw them.
Well, exactly, but the thing is I have to make a profit.
And be good at it.
If you if you're truly invested and truly passionate about your work, it will show in your quality.
Yes, and that is true, but again, especially when you work on contracts, it sucked because I had to make a balance. People want me to change this, they want me to do it this way. I don't want to do it this way. I have to come with
Okay.
It's just experiment and do what you want. And don't care about the fame. That is what I'm trying to get at.
If you guys want any more advice or tips, you can come to us either after the panel or at our tables.
Yeah.
Shoot.
Very much.
Any questions?
Or high card.
If there's a little gap in this, yeah.
Basically, I'm starting off, I really want to start getting into vending, and it's I'm kind of seeing from you guys where it's you start with something very simple,
Yeah.
I basically started with drawing a bunch of Sonic, but so now,
Same,
now
my
I'm
brother.
drawing more humans and, basically getting the architecture does because it's I really started looking into, more of the art, looking at what works and what doesn't, and, from then on, basically push myself to go somewhere further.
Yeah, that's exactly
Don't be afraid to
what you
team
gotta
up
do.
either. Tabling at cons, find a table partner.
Yes.
Especially if you're just starting out, you're not going to have enough to cover that whole table. I'll guarantee
Yeah,
you.
table partners are amazing.
What's your question, Amity?
I'm guessing not.
I do.
Oh, you do?
Well, we don't, because I'm partnering with someone.
Oh, God.
Any more questions?
Well, I think this panel's ending, but I'm totally willing to stay over if there's nothing else going on in this room to answer questions.
Yeah, there's nothing after us.
We can always go congregate in the hallway or something.
No, I don't think there is. I think.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
They still want to.
Yeah. I don't know. I think there's something afterwards.
If you want to talk to us.
Sorry, where it was after.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Whoa.